Since 2018, the United States has been tightening the rules designed to keep rival nations from slipping into the most sensitive corners of the American economy. Piece by piece, Washington has begun blocking foreign investment, from semiconductors to telecommunications and everything in between. But these restrictions weren't always so firm. Go back to 2016. A quiet headline begins circulating. A small insurance company, one hardly known outside government circles, had been sold to a Chinese firm. This wasn't just any company. It specialized in providing coverage to FBI and CIA personnel, protecting agents from financial loss. And suddenly, people began to ask, had an insurer responsible for U.S. intelligence officers now come under Chinese control? A year earlier in 2015, that same company, Right USA, had been quietly purchased by the Fosun Group, a private Chinese conglomerate widely believed to have close connections to China's leadership. For American officials, the alarm bells were immediate. Right USA held personal and highly confidential details of agents working across some of the nation's most secretive security institutions. Inside the United States, no one truly knew who might now have access to that information. And Right USA was not the only example. It wasn't the first American firm to be quietly sold to a foreign entity, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. This is today's story to uncover. Stay with us. This is USMag. New data is beginning to reveal a much bigger picture, a picture of how Chinese state-backed money is being poured into some of the world's richest nations. Across the United States, Europe, the Middle East, even Australia, Chinese companies have been quietly buying up assets. Over the last 2 decades, China has transformed into the world's largest foreign investor, a position that gives Beijing influence over sensitive industries, protected information, and technologies that shape the future. But the details behind this spending are treated like state secrets. How much money is being sent overseas, and exactly where it is going? Beijing keeps all of that hidden. Yet, the sale of Right USA wasn't illegal. It was a public transaction, an acquisition that anyone could read about. But because Beijing had a direct hand in the process, it raised a much deeper concern. Information tied to the deal could easily find its way to Chinese intelligence. And this wasn't speculation. The Chinese government was directly involved. 4 major state-owned banks issued a $1.2 billion loan to make the purchase possible. The funds were routed through the Cayman Islands and then into the Fosun Group, allowing it to quietly acquire Right USA. When this came to light, Washington reacted immediately. The U.S. State Department opened an investigation, and CFAUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, began reviewing the transaction closely. Not long after that intervention, the company was sold back to American ownership. But to this day, no one knows exactly who ordered the reversal. Today, Right USA holds control of what once was Right USA, and the story of this sale is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Senior U.S. intelligence officials have confirmed that the sale of Right USA was one of the key reasons the Trump administration decided to tighten investment laws back in 2018. At the time, very few could grasp the full picture. These Chinese state-backed expenditures were not isolated moves. They were part of a much larger strategy, a deliberate plan by Beijing to invest in assets across every continent. Brad Parks, executive director of Aid Data, explained it clearly. For years, we assumed that China's money was mostly going to developing nations. It was a major shock to discover that hundreds of billions of dollars were also flowing to countries like the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, and Germany, all happening right under our noses. Aid Data is a research laboratory based in Virginia, specializing in tracking how governments spend money beyond their own borders. It operates at William and Mary, one of America's oldest universities, and receives funding from governments and philanthropic organizations worldwide. For over a decade, Aid Data has maintained a strong focus on China. A 4-year study, conducted by 120 researchers, was the first comprehensive attempt to calculate all Chinese state-backed investments globally. The group's full dataset is available as open source, making it accessible to anyone seeking to understand the scale of Beijing's influence. According to AData's findings, since 2000, Beijing has spent roughly $2.1 trillion beyond its borders, with the funds split almost evenly between developing nations and wealthy countries. Victor Shi, director of the China Center at the University of California, said, "China has a financial system the world has never seen before." He added, "It is now home to the largest banking network in the world, surpassing the combined scale of the United States, Europe, and Japan. This is the scale of influence, the reach of capital, and the story of a financial power quietly reshaping the world." The sheer scale of China's overseas investments, combined with Beijing's tight control over state-owned banks, gives the country capabilities unlike any other. Victor Shi explains, "The government controls interest rates and directs exactly where loans and funds are allocated. This level of control is only possible under extremely strict capital regulations, something no other nation can maintain over the long term." It seems that some of these investments in wealthy economies were made for sound financial returns, while others were carefully targeted to achieve Beijing's strategic objectives. This approach reflects the Made in China 2025 policy, introduced around a decade ago. By then, Chinese officials had outlined a detailed plan aiming to dominate 10 advanced industries, including robotics, electric vehicles, and semiconductors. Beijing's goal was clear: make substantial investments abroad and bring critical technologies back to China. Because of the potential for global concern, China stopped openly discussing the plan, but according to Victor Shi, it remains in place as a guiding strategy behind the scenes. He adds, "Projects continue to be published, from artificial intelligence programs to smart manufacturing initiatives, yet the central framework for all of these efforts is the 15th Five-Year Plan." In October, at a major Communist Party meeting, China's leaders set a target to accelerate high-level scientific and technological self-reliance and self-improvement by 2030. AData's latest database sheds light on China's state-backed overseas expenditures, showing a strong alignment with the 10 strategic sectors first targeted in 2015. This is the story of a carefully orchestrated strategy, a plan designed to shape the global technological and economic landscape, quietly but with remarkable precision. The United States, the United Kingdom, and many other major economies have strengthened their investment screening processes. This came after growing concerns that countries could be exposed, following deals like the sale of insurance companies such as Wright USA. Brad Parks of AData explains, "At first, these investments were seen as standard moves by Chinese companies. Over time, it became clear that behind much of it, Beijing was actually guiding the strategy." It is important to note that these investments and acquisitions are legal, even when they involve shell companies or offshore accounts. The Chinese embassy in London stated, "Chinese businesses operating abroad are always required to strictly follow local laws and regulations, while we continue to support international cooperation on a mutually beneficial basis." Chinese companies not only provide high-quality products and services worldwide, they also contribute to local economic growth, social development, and employment, the embassy added. AData's database shows that China's spending patterns are evolving. State-backed funds from Beijing are increasingly going to countries that welcome Chinese investment. In the Netherlands, a Chinese-owned semiconductor company, Nexperia, has become the focus of ongoing debate. According to AData, in 2017, Chinese state-owned banks provided an $800 million loan to a Chinese consortium, helping them acquire Nexperia. 2 years later, ownership was transferred to another Chinese firm, Wingtech. Nexperia's strategic importance became clear when Dutch authorities assumed partial control of the company's operations in September. The Dutch government explained, this was due to concerns that Nexperia's technology could be transferred to other parts of the larger Wingtech company. As a result, Nexperia was effectively divided into two operations. Dutch operations were separated from the Chinese manufacturing entity. Nexperia confirmed that it had stopped operating under its Chinese partner's governance framework after the company failed to follow corporate directives. The company also welcomed China's commitment to resume exports of its key chips to global markets, a step seen as critical for maintaining its presence in the international semiconductor industry. Xiaoxue Martin, a research fellow at the Clingendael Institute in The Hague, notes that many people in the Netherlands were surprised by how the government handled this case. Historically, the country had always approached its relationship with China with caution. She explains, "The Netherlands has always thrived under open free trade. This is truly the commercial side of Dutch policy. Only recently have we realized that patience is essential. There needs to be an industrial policy to review such investments within the context of geopolitics. And in the past, this did not receive enough attention," she adds. Martin emphasizes that, instead of reacting out of fear when doing significant business with a superpower like China, patience is often the safest and most effective strategy when evaluating the potential consequences. She continues, "It might seem as though China is the only power capable of bringing Europe and the United States under its control, but in reality, that is not the case. Most Chinese companies, particularly private ones, are focused on making profits. They want to operate like ordinary businesses and have no interest in creating a negative perception in Europe," she says. If China is leading in acquiring assets in sensitive industries, does this mean the race for dominance is over? Brad Park says it is not. Many targets remain, and Chinese companies continue to pursue them. The difference now is that these investments face higher-level scrutiny to examine foreign capital sources. China is moving forward. It is not following anyone. It sets the pace for investment. But what I expect is that many G7 nations will shift from a defensive posture to a proactive one, moving from reactive strategies toward more assertive approaches, he concludes. This story is far from over, and the strategies shaping global investment and technology are still unfolding. If you want to stay informed on stories like this, subscribe to USMag. Share this video, comment your thoughts, and don't miss our in-depth documentaries, where we explore the forces shaping the world around us.